Oh, wait, no. This is the other one.
Yes.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I am Adam.
And I'm Norm.
Good afternoon.
We have a great show for you today. Pearl Jam's here.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be fucking amazing.
Eddie Vedder just turned around with a guitar and he's just doing his thing.
Like he pulls off the Rocketeer hat.
Unbelievable. I love Eddie Vedder's voice so
he's
much.
Great.
Have you listened to the Into the Wild soundtrack?
New album? Oh, no.
Into the Wild.
Into the Wild.
No.
It is the
Sean Penn movie.
Yeah, it's the movie out of Krakauer's book.
Yeah.
And it is a phenomenal soundtrack. Really, really lovely. All solo material from Vedder, and it's incredible.
I listened to a ton of the new album that came out last summer, or the most recent Pearl Jam album. I don't even remember what it's called. I put it on RDO, and it has been one of those things that I listened to a ton. Yeah. And I fell off somewhere like between the second and third albums in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it's really good.
You know, I know you're old. I'm kidding.
Norman Chan. Go back to listen to your Neutral Milk Hotel or whatever that business is.
Oh, hey, Chiba Mato has a new album out.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Chiba Mato. They were a terrific Japanese girl band from the early 90s. They had amazing songs like White Pepper Ice Cream.
I don't listen to world music.
I know I'm a chicken. You got to know you're a chicken. It's a great album.
That sounds good.
Look up Chiba Mato.
It's like the
Better than 5, 6, 7, 8s?
Yeah, well, similar kind of thing.
5, 6, 7, 8s were kind of a
5, 6, 7, 8s
two-hit
are
wonder,
great.
though.
Yeah. We used to work with someone who was good friends with the 5, 6, 7, 8s and would tell us gossip about them.
Nice.
Who was that?
Our old copy editor at
Oh,
Mary.
you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking
She's
of,
also friends with she was at interesting friends, actually, Mary.
now the 5, 6, 7, 8s were discovered by Tarantino and put in Kill Bill.
Yes.
So speaking of Kill Bill references, while I was showing the boys True Romance last night, and he goes to the Sonny Chiba triple feature, I pointed out
Oh, yeah.
Sonny Chiba is one of Tarantino's favorites.
Hero.
And have they seen Kill Bill yet?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so they know he's in the movie
That he's
multiple
Tony
times.
Hanzo.
He's
He's
both Hattori
also,
Hanzo,
yeah.
and he's one of the Crazy 88s.
Oh, I didn't realize he's one of the Crazy 88s.
And in Kill Bill Volume 2,
No.
plays...
You're thinking of Gordon Liu, who's one of the Crazy 88s. There's also
the master.
Pai Mei.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yes.
So racist.
What?
No.
So racist.
I'm confusing all the Asian people.
So disappointed in you, Norm.
Grant.
We have those comments just make me sad.
No.
On a couple of different levels. We have a good show for you today, really. I was serious about that.
Are you texting somebody?
Yeah, I my wife's sending me inappropriate messages and pictures. No.
Excellent.
But I do have an email from a guy named Dave.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so we're doing questions. Hold on. Let me just respond to this because this is happening in a minute. 5. There we go. That's my comment. we are taking questions.
We're taking questions. We've taken. It's
taken
too late. The
questions,
window's
and now we're
closed because
answering
we
them.
recorded this 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
By the time you see this, maybe
Not
4.
that we don't like questions.
No, we love
questions.
questions.
Can still
Yeah.
come in anytime.
We have an email address for that. It is podcast@tested.com, and you can put the subject line questions for Adam, and they'll get filtered into the appropriate folder so no human being has to think. And when we want to read them, we just filter down and read them and pick out the ones that we think are the most interesting or will provoke the most interesting conversation.
Well,
So that's our criteria.
Let's get started.
Dave Seff says, I have a small machine shop at home, and like you, my time is precious and sparse. How do you find time? And also, what are your methods to keep the shop and tools clean and organized? If you say you use a PA, I'm going to be really sad.
Yeah, I was actually just before this, I was complaining that I need a PA. I need someone to come in a couple days a week and help me. But for the time being, I don't have that. I do keep my own shop clean. And by saying I keep my own shop clean, I mean I try and keep it clean, and I fail a lot at that. But
Right. It stacks up. But you, I mean, big on the macro level, I think things stack up. But on the micro level, for example, little tools and things always go back.
they always go back. I'm very assiduous about it. My shop is small, so putting tools back is easy. I do try and put all hand tools back by the end of the day.
And you're pretty good about materials too. Like
Yes.
tape goes back on the tape wall.
Well, there's not a lot of room here, so it has to be done. And in fact, the difference at the end of the day between doing it and not doing it is so significant when you come in the next day. Because frankly, you only have to not clean up for a day to not ever want to clean up again because
Yeah.
it's too much to deal with. And
And once that starts happening, it snowballs, and the next thing you know, quarters.
So I think you're right. On a micro level, I am able to keep this shop relatively clean. Over the yearly basis, they're usually 2 or 3 times a year. I'll get into a production mode, or we'll go to Comic-Con, or I went on tour, and the shop will just get totally trashed while things are arriving and things are leaving and things are getting made. And then I'll have to beat it back like a lion with a chair and a whip.
And sometimes you do get help when you're into that phase.
Absolutely.
Whether you recruit your kids or, we do
Absolutely. I've
15
even
minutes
hired
before
people to
show
come
or
on
whatever.
in. And in fact, actually about 4 times a year, I bring in cleaners to come and do a scrub clean of the shop. But mostly it's me. Now, the really important question he's asking is, where do you find the time? And the fact is, sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. I have a family. I have a wife. I have 2 kids. They're 14 years old. They require an amount of attention that is vital to maintain.
It's not that they require; it's a demand. Well, like that the family is.
It sounds like it's a demand being put on me.
But it's one you put on yourself.
It is, but it's not even what I put on myself. It is the process of being a father and a husband require an amount of your attention and your energy, and putting that right amount of attention and energy makes those jobs pleasurable and life affirming. Like I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
I have struggled in my life with balancing my personal life with the stuff I want to do in the shop, because frankly, there are weeks where if you gave me the choice, I would spend 24/7 in the shop just working. The fact is, I almost never have that much time. So what do? I find the time when I can grab it. So when I'm in production on Mythbusters and we're filming in the city, I come here for lunch almost every day. I get about 45 minutes here when you subtract the commute from the shop back and forth. And that is enough time for me to come in. Sometimes I just sit in my easy chair, my club chair there, and I just chill and read. But there's sort of a fidelity to coming in and taking the time to sort of breathe in this space. But I'm not quite getting at the heart of this. For the longest time, because relationships that I'd be in would always feel like girlfriends had always felt like I spent too much time in the shop. And I sort of ended up feeling as a default that whenever I was in the shop, I was stealing time.
Guilty
time. And at one point, I was talking to my wife and we were talking about it. And, this is when I had my shop in the house. And even then it felt like that. And she pointed out, or we realized through the course of this discussion, that it's not about the physical location. It's about your mental location.
And the attention when you're with the family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so all 3 of those things. So where I am is not as important as where I am mentally. And the fact is once I made that switch over to, I'm in the shop, but I know where my kids are. I know what their homework is. I know what's going on. I know what we're going to talk about dinner tonight. I know what my wife's schedule is, and I know what's going on in my house. I am not just unreachable and showing up late and maybe bruised from having, chipped my finger on a drill.
Or on your phone.
You're present.
Yeah. I'm totally present. And the moment, this is about 5 years ago, the moment I made that switch to being fully present in my family, the amount of time I got in the shop increased. Well, it was really remarkable. And also the amount of pleasure I got out of that time increased because I didn't feel like I was guiltily stealing time or like, oh, I've only got 30 minutes. What am I going to do? Now it's just like, all right, I can probably finish that in the next couple of weeks if I head in there. And there are certain Saturdays, where my kids are off at music school and my wife is doing a seminar or something. I get like 6 or 7 hours in here. That happens about once a month. The rest of the time, sometimes I only get an hour a week in here, but
well, then you have hiatus times where
I balance between going on vacation and then coming back and spending some time here. Look, sorry, I know I'm sort of rambling.
No.
I'm trying to get all the thoughts out. I mean, the fact is I need to spend a certain amount of time here. It's not stealing time because the weird shit that happens here is the engine of everything else that I have. And I have to pay respect to that.
Well, it makes you better at the other stuff.
It totally does.
You can't take a vacation every weekend, but you can come here and recharge the batteries.
Yeah.
And it's not Paul Rudd going to see Spider-Man 2.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Reference.
What's that?
Knocked Up. Do you remember?
Wow.
He had this fake Leslie Mann, fake poker night.
Oh, he went to, it doesn't even matter. Yeah. I'm just going to drop this and walk away. The thing you touched on, I think it's really important. I have always traditionally, when I've been setting up my garage shop or whatever I've always really cheaped out on storage stuff, and both that and keeping materials around. I buy the materials I need for the project at hand. And one of the things that you've done that I think is really amazing here is you have a lot of the basic hardware that takes a lot of time to go get here on hand. So whether that's sheets of 5 different kinds of plywood and Luan, or screws or physical hardware, and you invested in storage systems for all that stuff so you can find it.
Yep.
Because that's the difference.
Well, and the word invest is great, because it happened that about 5-6 years ago, I was, realizing that I'm making really good money doing Mythbusters. And I've got a home shop. I could invest in sorters and nuts and bolts, and it cost me a lot. But I have a full set of all of that. And I realized, I won't be doing this show forever. I won't be making this kind of money forever, but I will always have these rolling carts of drill bits, nuts, bolts, hardware, and they will follow me everywhere.
And it's a lifetime supply in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I like what you said about this shop being the engine of who you are. And a lot of people, who don't have their own shops, but have their own offices or garages, those are their engine spaces.
Absolutely. And, you read, look, everyone finds the balance in their lives. And when you look at the Replica Prop Forum, I notice a lot of guys going out and building stuff in their garage, working on props and stuff like that. And there is a refrain which drives me crazy, which is, I hate even saying the word, the honey-do list. You know about this? Honey, could you do this? And a lot of folks talk about the balance between doing the stuff they want to do and the honey-do list, which is like it's really this sort of trope of my wife gives me a list to do around the house, and when I'm done with that, I can do my own
stuff. Change the light fixture and switch all the doorknobs.
Right, and it's like, frankly, I don't like that. I'm not the handyman for our house. I fix stuff as it's needed because it's my house.
Because it annoys you.
It's the same thing as not taking care of my kids babysitting, right? I'm a fucking dad. I take care of my kids. It's not babysitting. I'm not taking time so that my wife can get a break.
I thought you meant taking care of your kids with their babysitting. You should absolutely talk to the babysitter. Jesus, man, what's wrong with you? You're absolutely right.
So for me, the more that I consider my family as my partner, so they're as much in the shop as I am in the house.
Yeah, they're here all the time.
My kids are.
You don't see them.
We
don't put them on camera because you don't want them on camera.
Yeah, but kids are here all the time. They've sat in the background of podcasts. They play pool here all the time. They come in for projects, and I work with them in the shop where I'll let them understand tools. And actually, now that they're 14, I'm going to start getting them more accustomed to the lathe and the mill and other of the
scary
more
stuff,
advanced tools. They're still scared of the table saw, which I point out they should be.
That's healthy.
Yeah, I still am. And again, like I said, there are some periods of time where I get a bunch of hours a week in here, and those are great. There are other periods of time where I don't. And frankly, it also, paying attention to the needs of my family means that I might be here working and realize, I got to go home. I got to be there.
And the same goes the other way. It seems like when you need to be over here.
Yes.
And you have a drive that lets you you would choose working over sleeping.
Sometimes, absolutely, I totally would. And it is, but with all the stuff that I have going on, I have multiple modes of recharging. One of them is here in the shop. Another is cooking in my kitchen with my family. Another is sitting watching movies with everybody. Another is lying on the bed and reading in the afternoon. Another is taking naps every Saturday and Sunday around 4:00 after taking a nice big long walk after a brunch. Those are all recharge modes that are different than I got to get this done by this date to do this thing, or I got to finish this prop to deliver it to somebody, or I got to go film Mythbusters. That is all the worky work, and coming here and building these weird props, that's the recharge.
Well, I guess that'll do it for this question and answer podcast.
No, that was one question.
Thanks for your question, Dave.
That was a fantastic question. And
that's the only one I
love
got.
talking about that stuff. Everyone has to find their own level with their family. And I'm not saying that my method works for everybody, but it's taken me a long time, even after all the success that I've enjoyed, to still find that balance and just keep it going.
It's hard. I mean, that kind of stuff my wife and I don't fight very often, and that's one of the things that we have arguments about.
Infrastructure.
And frequently, the irony is that we have arguments about the same. We both are on the same side of the same thing, and usually the argument's actually about communication or whatever. But anyway,
Yes.
I was very impressed that you remembered his name.
Who's?
Dave.
I said Dave. It's written on the
Yeah,
paper.
no, but Adam also said it just to thank the. And I was like, wow, that is a unique skill.
The next question is from Ed. Ed says, my question is, will the Mythbusters tackle the fast-growing trend of drones? From the technology of weaponized military use to the worrisome backyard surveillance and home delivery aspects of these flying crafts that are autonomous, it seems like there might be a lot of different myths and things that could be pursued that are interesting.
I don't see that there's a lot of there for the type of stuff that Mythbusters tests. I mean, if there was footage of a drone flying sideways through a window of a department store and then out again without breaking anything, that might be something we could test.
You need drone dash cams.
There are more misconceptions. Than
There are more
apocryphal
misconceptions.
stories.
I'll tell you. I mean, I follow this kind of technology and the effects of it, the cascade of effects from it, very closely. I'm very fascinated by it. I for one think that it is the worst idea in the world to put guns and things that kill onto a robot.
That is autonomous.
That
or
is
relatively autonomous.
I think that is the worst idea possible.
I feel like we should
It's a
make
recipe for killing
Yeah.
innocent people.
All of those people should watch every science fiction movie.
Absolutely.
It's a terrible
It is.
idea.
it's not even
also-
about the AI. It's just the fact
not-
that
it-
it can be
Another
any-
misconception,
Yeah.
another really common misconception is that somehow the flying of the drones, which happens, I think, often out of Colorado, that are doing sorties in the Middle
Depends.
East.
The Navy and what? Navy and Air
everybody
Force are
has their own
completely
place.
different,
But
yeah.
let's just understand that the drone pilots are very far removed from the battlefields that they are flying over by thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of miles. The idea that they are insulated from the effects of those battles is totally wrong. They are not, and they suffer PTSD and the effects of battle fatigue just as much as a soldier out in
or
the
even more
field.
so because
Yeah.
of the disconnect.
It's not a fair fight.
It's not a fair fight.
Yeah.
And it is, these guys are watching through cameras as people that targets are being acquired and executed. And that is a moral conundrum.
And then they go
that
home
is
to their
really
families.
difficult.
With
They clock out at
dozens-
5 and go home.
Dozens of voices in their head,
Yes.
literally.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, so again, like I said, I'm very cognizant of that technology and of its moral, social, political, etc. Effects, and I'm very interested in where it's going and how it's working. But I don't think that there's much of a testable myths for Mythbusters. I will say that our second cameraman, Duncan Clark, we call him Duke, is a copter, a quadcopter. Actually, now he has an octocopter that can carry, I think, something like a 7-pound payload.
Wow.
So it can actually carry the FS-700
Hellfire
camera.
missile.
And he's gotten really good at flying that thing. And it's got a gimbaled base for the camera, so no matter what he does, the shot stays steady.
That's a lot of fun.
And you'll
That's awesome.
notice coming up more and more shots on Mythbusters that are like, wow, big crane shots.
You guys didn't
Those
get a
are all
big
done
crane?
with Duncan's quadcopters.
It's like it's RC.
Yeah.
It's deliver our Amazon packages also.
Someday.
Straight wants to know.
Straight.
I think that's Strate. I think it's a handle.
Oh,
not a
okay.
name. He wants to know, or she, I guess. You've stated that you love eggs and that they're the perfect food. I've just learned how to make tamagayaki, the Japanese folded omelet. Have you ever tried it, and what do you think?
No, I have not tried
You should
it.
try it. You would love tamagayaki.
Okay, so I will find a recipe. Will you send me a recipe? Have you tried it?
I've had the egg nigiri.
Yeah.
Which is the same kind of textural, the
Right. So
'cause
it's like almost like thin crepe and then folded, or
you know the secret of evaluating sushi restaurants.
Is
When my wife used to work for Kubota, which is a Japanese company, the Japanese executives would come over and they would put her in charge of finding the sushi place in whatever middle American city they were going to, that would then have to be open all night because they stayed on Tokyo time.
Oh, I'm dying to know this. So they have a metric for what makes a good sushi restaurant.
And it's the egg. The fish doesn't. The fish.
fish is good wherever you get it.
Yeah, it's either good or bad.
Right.
It's prepared right or not. But the technique of the egg for the nigiri is
Fascinating.
is what their metric was.
It's not necessarily the ingredients; it's how much attention
It's
they
the
pay
technique. Yeah.
to making
Okay.
it. And if you've seen Jiro Dreams of Sushi,
Yeah,
it's
I
the
haven't
one
yet.
thing. Oh, you should watch that.
Okay.
It not only is about his lifelong, craft of making sushi,
Yeah.
but in terms of training his apprentices, one of the things they emphasize is just how long you have to practice. making that
I'm
egg.
so dying to try this now. Okay, I'm totally.
know what you're doing
This
this
is my
weekend.
next thing. I'm going to work on it this weekend. Wait. I want to say. We have to talk about Man on Wire. Have you seen that yet?
Oh, that movie's fantastic.
I just watched it last week. Holy cow! What a movie.
So we talked about
yeah.
this when we did documentaries, and I'm not sure if you've seen it then.
No, I
That
haven't.
is a heist movie.
Boy, it's totally
Movie's
a heist
amazing.
movie.
But it's with
great.
puppeteers. It's crazy.
I just love Philippe Petit at the end going, I know it seems disgusting to give in to the pleasures of the flesh, but it was live.
That's what he talks about. The first thing he did was he ran.
So good.
It's
so good.
There's a 10-minute animated short that I think won an Oscar a few years ago too. That tells the same story, but it's only like 10 minutes. It's
Okay,
animated.
I got to
It's
look that up.
beautiful.
It's
I have it on
great.
my iPad. I'll
So
show you.
Jiro Dreams of Sushi is in my Netflix.
It's really
Netflix
good.
queue. It's going. I want to watch it.
Oh my god, we need another documentary podcast.
Yes,
episode.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what we should do is we should get a list of documentaries that the three of us haven't seen and then watch them.
That's a good idea.
together
do a
and
book
talk.
club.
That makes that
Because
podcast
it'll be
much
fresh
better.
in all
Yeah.
of our minds. Okay, next question.
JJ asks if Adam could be part of the new Star Wars movies, assuming that he's not already. Would he prefer to be a part of the effects team or to have a small walk-on part?
Can I choose both?
Okay.
You could build the robot that you're wearing the costume for.
So,
It's a good question, JJ.
it is a great question. The fact is, of course, I would love to be part of the effects team. I have been part of the effects team for 2 of the Star Wars movies. And I was going to do a couple of weeks of work on episode 3, but the Mythbusters shooting schedule in 2003 was pushed up and I couldn't do it. So I was thinking it would be nice to be able to say, I worked on episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
But I worked on episodes 1 and 2 extensively. I was actually, I believe, the very first model maker hired on episode 2 by Brian Gernand, who is the shop supervisor for that movie.
But that's an interesting time. I mean, we've talked about this before.
Anyway,
That's
we
an
talked about
interesting
that
time. Yeah.
So, as far as the effects team goes, I would love to be part of the effects team. I think I would love to be part of the effects team on a slightly more advanced level than I was before, not just model making, but helping solve some of the problems with the effects. I know John Knoll pretty well. He's he's the chief creative officer of Lucasfilm and was the effects director for the first 3 Star Wars movies. Wait, was he for the first 3? Yes.
For 1, 2, and 3 or the original
1, 2, and 3.
series?
I'm trying to think if it was him or Dennis Muren or the 2 of them together. I know there was a split there. At any rate,
Okay.
we can look it up on something.
Or someone will tell us.
At any rate,
yeah, the comments for that.
I would kill for a walk-on part, and I've made that known through 2 different channels
All you have to be
the
is-
people in charge.
Is one of George Lucas's children.
I gather from what I understand that would be a lovely thing to be, because I understand that George is actually a magnificent dad.
I gotta
and
imagine.
a very caring father, and I know people who know him and his kids, and he just sounds like a wonderful dad. Whatever you think of his directing, and we've talked about it before, he pays attention to the things that are important to him, and that is definitely one of them. So I'd love to be one of George's kids.
So if you were offered like, oh yeah, we're filming a scene, what would, and you had option between alien, robot.
Yeah, would you wear a mask or would you be like a background Jedi or like what's the stormtrooper?
That's a good
Wear the
question.
helmet?
Yeah,
Are you the right height?
Stormtrooper would be great, but I don't know if they'll come up with a redesign for Stormtroopers, right?
Well, it's post. So
what's that?
Stormtroopers are gone at this. I mean, potentially.
At the end of episode 6.
Yeah.
I guess they're clones, but maybe they didn't kill them all because they're living beings. So
Nope.
the Jedi would save them and maybe take off
Murder
their
them
armor,
all.
and they all look like the same dudes. The universe is packed.
Send
with-
them to a shitty planet out in the outskirts of
that's
the
no
galaxy.
good. What would I like to play? God, it's really hard to say. I mean, I tell you, I would like to be some. I'd love a part that was a little bit unique. Not just somebody in the background of a cantina type scene, but like a guard of something or
Purple lightsaber.
Now,
a bounty hunter.
To be fair,
I don't want to be a Jedi.
Okay.
I don't get me wrong. I just think that those roles should go to people other than me.
like if you were in the back of a cantina scene playing 3D chess or something, that would still be pretty cool.
That would be darn cool. Don't
Lando
get-
Calrissian's guard buddy
beggars
in
can't
Jabba's
be
palace?
choosers.
Yeah.
Beggars can't be. I would take anything, but you're asking me what I
Yes,
prefer,
right.
and I'm
Something
saying,
memorable.
Memorable.
and
Yeah,
unique.
I'd like to do something memorable. I'll play a Wookiee.
Oh. You're a little aren't you a little short for a
I
Wookiee?
am definitely short for a Wookiee.
He was a visual effects
I've been
supervisor.
tweeting back and forth with Peter Mayhew all week.
The best.
The Wookiee roars. He's been tweeting to me. I've been tweeting to him. It just feels so awesome. I met him a couple years ago at Comic-Con at
a
my
signed
friend Bill
picture.
Prady's party. Yeah. And he's just one of the meeting Peter Mayhew is almost as good as finding out that Chewbacca's real, because Chewbacca as a character, like I've said before, is one of my favorite non-human characters, perhaps the best non-human character in any movie. And Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca, is one of the gentlest and sweetest humans I have ever met. He's engaging and he's really smart and he's just delightful. And his wife too. I love spending time with them. And tweeting back and forth is like a squee moment crazy.
He seems genuinely wonderful.
He is genuinely wonderful.
KD wanted to know, have you ever bought an as seen on TV product? What was it and was it worth it?
Oh man, I'm always tempted to buy an as seen on TV product, but I have never done it. Just as you think I have?
You have an UV glove here somewhere.
What's an UV glove?
It's a heated glove for lifting stuff. It's like an oven mitt
insulated.
that has fingers. And it's like white, thick cloth. Maybe it was at M5, but I'm sure I've seen an UV glove
Was it
somewhere.
M5?
when you
Not
were
here.
around.
I haven't personally bought that. Just as I've also never purchased anything from Sky Mall, and maybe we should do a post about it, or like choose something because
yes.
I've always wanted something from Sky Mall.
Norm and I used to test as seen on TV stuff.
Really?
There used to be at on TV stores.
Yes, I loved
in the
those
malls.
stores.
Yeah,
They're no longer.
most of them are gone.
Yeah.
They're in outlet malls now in the middle part of the country.
Right.
But
I have never. I don't think I ever have.
the as seen on TV stuff is in Walgreens and Rite Aids. It's always on the end caps.
It is a
now.
great brand. It is a terrific brand. I'm always like, oh, when I see it.
I don't know if I'd call it a great. It's
Well,
an
I'm just saying its
brand.
effect on me
Oh, yeah.
is precisely what they're intending, which is like, and then
now-
I
now
don't
the-
buy it, but I'm like, oh.
Tangentially related question
Yeah.
is: have you bought anything with like on Shop at Home Network?
Never.
Like no
Never.
knives.
I used
Adam's
to,
not that old.
I know. I used to watch The Sword Guy.
Yeah.
No, those guys are great.
On the
Knife Show.
The Knife Show.
When you did this, we all knew what you were
We all
doing.
knew it.
We all knew it.
Shit! This is
I
bad.
need a doctor.
So you got to get Mike Rowe, because Mike Rowe used to do that.
Oh yeah.
You got to get Mike Rowe to tell the story about the time he got in trouble for selling ice.
He got fired from that show like 3 times.
3 times.
There was
and one of them was when he sold ice. I won't ruin the
Oh
story.
my god! And there's
Mike
a
should
nun
tell it.
story, and there's jeez.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I always look at Sky Mall longingly. In fact, they've got a new like self-balancing single-wheeled thing on Sky Mall.
Oh, we saw it at CES a couple years ago. Yeah.
And I also saw the mono wheel from CES this year that someone was riding around.
That's the new.
It's a Kickstarter.
There's 3 things. Yeah. There's the scooter, the kneeling, standing scooter.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of weird riding around.
kneeling,
prototypes.
standing scooter.
It looks like you know those things that you do when you break
This falls
your
into the
ankle.
category of like Vespas. Any vehicle you can drive with your legs crossed is probably not a vehicle you should be on.
Wow.
You stand by those remarks, sir.
Wow. I don't know
Yeah.
whether to be offended or impressed. I'm gonna get on my Vespa and
elephant?
pedal the hell out of here.
Ciao. All right. Next question.
Let's see.
That was my Eddie Izzard impression. Ciao.
I was just going to let it go.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we're going to drop that and walk away. Peter, he's from Scandinavia, I believe. So it's Petter. So
Petter.
Peter. I don't know.
Petter. Maybe that's his
Peter.
nickname.
Yeah, I call it Petter.
That's a little heavy, Petter.
After watching the Talking Room videos, I noticed a big blue book in the background with the title Film Guide written on it. After some research, it seems as though it is an old Hollywell's film
Yes,
guide,
it is.
but I'm not sure which one.
I believe.
Is it the 3rd or 6th edition?
Oh, God.
When I
So-
find out the answer, I will scour the interwebs and get it shipped to Norway.
Oh, that's great.
As you think
Petter.
about that is a great meta. Like as you take screen caps.
I have been wondering when people are going to start commenting on books they saw. At the
Oh, they
bookshelves.
totally.
Okay, so I'm happy to answer
They're
any
watching.
questions people have about those. That is a Hallowell's Film Guide, and it is actually a momentous book because in 1984, I was 16, and we were having a dinner party at my parents' house. Obviously, I was still living there, so it was my house. And Apocalypse Now was on the television, and I still remember walking. I wasn't watching it. But I was walking past the television and the shot of Martin Sheen in full camo makeup coming out of the water, and I saw it, and it is the shot that clicked a switch in my brain that made me a lover of film. It happened at that second. And
up until that point, going to the movies was a thing you did. It was
a
fun.
thing I did and a thing I loved. But that was the time I saw that there was incredible paint. I mean, that is like a Goya painting. That image. It's all like a Velázquez. It's unbelievably beautiful. And I started to it like in that moment where Trinity knows how to fly the helicopter. I understood film as an art form.
Well, you start watching things differently.
Yeah.
You see the whole thing differently.
Oh, yeah. So I watched Apocalypse Now all the way through, and it blew my mind how much there was in this movie. It killed me. It slayed me. And I started to watch other movies that I loved and understanding new things about them. Raiders, still what I consider one of the top 5 greatest movies ever made, a perfect movie. And then somewhere in that year, I was at the bookstore. We had this lovely bookstore in Tarrytown, New York. And I went in and I bought Hallowell's Film Guide. So that would be somewhere in 1984 or 85. I think that would be a third edition. And I started to look through it. So the first thing I did, and that's the version I bought back then. I marked all the films I had seen or I was watching. And then I started to notice as I was reading his synopsis and I was opening it up to random pages and learning about movies and reading about them.
It's a book that lists a list of movies.
16,000 movies with micro encapsulations of each one. Who were the major actors? Who was the director? When it came out? What studio made it? How much money it made? How much money it cost, I think.
It's like IMDb, but on paper.
And then a rating of 1 to 4 stars or 1 to 5 stars.
Okay.
Now, as I started going through it and check marking the films that I'd seen, which was sort of my way of being a little bit like Ione Skye from Say Anything, how she would like mark dictionary words that she'd looked up and he's looking through it and she's like marked every page dozens of times.
Just to be clear, marking reference books, totally okay.
Totally
cookbooks,
okay.
My cookbooks are filled with notes in the margin and things that I do.
Greasy
Marking
and
books,
burnt
period.
and absolutely.
I don't like marking fiction.
Why not?
I don't really. I mean,
What's going to happen? You're going to read it again?
it's not. No, it's not that. It's just.
I have never marked fiction, but I've marked lots of my
Reference books are always mark and fiction. I
Underlying
don't.
words. Underlying sentences.
Yeah, you know, look, I'm all for. I dog ear my books. I beat the hell out of them. I have a relationship with them, and they are not. Yeah. At any rate, going back to Hallowell's Film Guide, as I started to look at films and note that I'd already seen hundreds of movies, and it was kind of exciting. I noticed that he didn't like any of the movies I liked, and he was like, he would give like 2-star rating to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I was like, what? Why doesn't he like this movie? And then I started to notice a trend that he didn't like any movie that came out after 1965, that he was very opinionated. And so then I thought, well, what kind of movies does Hallowell like? Okay, so I flipped through until I found the first 5-star review that he'd given. The first 5-star review that I could find. Scrolling
Alphabetical
for 5
order,
stars.
right?
Yeah, but I mean, I was just sort of randomly flipping through. 5-star, where is it?
Gunga Din.
Philadelphia Story.
Really?
And I was like, well, let's see what this movie's like. Instantly became one of my favorite movies of all time. And I've talked about it here before.
Yeah.
Philadelphia Story, another perfect movie. It is great every single time I watch it. It is the reason we call the talking room because that's a line from the movie. And that again,
Well, I got to bleep that out now.
it helped solidify my love of film. It gave me a relationship to film that was wholly new because this book educated me in a way I didn't understand. Oh, now I see. Philadelphia Story is a very different kind of movie than Raiders, and Hallowell grew up with this, and that's very different. I can still love both, and there's plenty of place for that. But then I started to go through his 5-star movies, things like, that's why I saw Citizen Kane, Night of the Hunter, African Queen, Manchurian Candidate, all of these really amazing movies.
So this is something I did, but it took me 10 years to know what I needed to see because I picked it out from wide and far across the internet and books and things I read.
Yeah.
And having the one book condensed accelerated. The other difference is that if kids are doing this now, they're just going to post a comment on that page with the list of all the movies you love, calling you an asshole, and probably never get to the Philadelphia Story.
There's a right time in your life to watch some of these movies, where you are in your life, what type of life experiences you have. have.
Exactly. And how they built you. And, frankly, there are, one of the things websites do have is like when you're on Rotten Tomatoes and you're doing a bunch of searches and you're looking, and I find their ratings insanely accurate to what I like. It'll give you lists of suggestions of other movies. If you're looking at this one, you should look at these. And that's a wonderful metric by which to start to widen your horizons. But, also, I think there's plenty of a place for the dartboard approach as well. Oh, you like movies? Then here's a list of the ones that you should see. And, that's the kind of stuff that everyone finds their own way to it.
It's good to, I mean, it's important when you're doing that stuff, when you're digging into that stuff, to go both deep down things that you like. So if you watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and realize, wow, I really like martial arts movies, go deep.
Yeah.
But then
absolutely.
don't watch nothing but martial arts movies. Go watch some stuff you'd never watch otherwise.
Absolutely.
And then you learn more stuff. You always find more stuff you love.
There is a whole area of film I have never investigated, and I totally want to, which is, and I know for a fact there is this deep, rich, amazing culture of film that I have never explored, and that's Bollywood. And I know that it goes back as long as our film history, and it encompasses a completely different way of thinking about storytelling and of telling film stories, and it has influenced Western filmmaking tremendously. And I don't know how. And that has always been an area in which I'd love someone to give me, see these 10 movies, and they will really help educate you.
Or not even genre-wise, even like directors-wise. Like,
Yes,
you love a Kubrick
for
movie,
instance.
like first time you saw 2001 and you want to binge watch all of them, I would actually say, because there are only so many, like for Kubrick or Miyazaki, save some. Maybe like one new one every year. Give yourself.
That's a good point.
Pace yourself.
But there are so many good directors. I don't mind binge watching a whole bunch of stuff by one director.
You can and there's a lot to be said for going back and watching it at different periods in your life. You hit on this earlier, Norm.
Yeah.
But Reality Bites, it was a completely different movie to me when I was 22 years old than it is now.
Isn't it funny?
It doesn't age well.
It doesn't age well.
No.
We watched it about 6 or 7 years ago.
I loved that movie.
or
then.
True Romance.
Yeah.
Before watching Tarantino's other films and then after.
It's very amazing. True Romance, right? At the climax of True Romance, where is Clarence? He's in the bathroom.
Oh, right.
Tarantino loves putting characters in the bathroom, while
'cause
all
Travolta
hell
does
is
it
breaking
too, yeah.
loose in the next room.
Harry
Vincent
Keitel
Vega's in the
and-
bathroom twice while shit's going down in the other room.
And Harvey
Wow, shit's
Keitel
going down.
in Reservoir
Both
Dogs.
rooms.
Right.
Thanks, Norm. That was a good.
Norm, high five
yeah.
up here.
Well done.
That was beautiful. I can't believe I didn't spot that.
You go to Hollywood. If you want the Bollywood movies, just talk to Gonzo. He wanted to go to Bombay, India to become a movie star.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said in the Muppet movie.
I totally forgot that.
And I didn't realize that. Like, this is an example of a thing that rolls back 20 years later.
Right.
I didn't get that joke until I watched this movie this year. And I was like, wait, that was a Bollywood joke. They made a Bollywood joke in like 1979.
Totally. So the other thing that I'll say about film is that I love watching movies multiple times. I love watching them, over time and over time. And, my wife and I have sat through The Departed, or as we call it, The Departed, probably 6 or 7 times.
It's a phenomenal film.
It's a phenomenal film. We also, both of us, particularly love watching movies, pausing and talking about them. And then watching and pausing and talking about them. Oh, this thing, like, for instance, we were talking last night after watching True Romance, that amazing scene between Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken,
Okay.
where Christopher Walken's a
Spoilers,
mobster.
probably.
It's a spoiler alert. If
It's
you
a
haven't seen
20-year-old
it,
movie.
stop listening. But it's a 20-year-old movie, and boy, is it amazing. So Dennis Hopper plays Christian Slater's dad. Christopher Walken plays a mobster coming and looking for Christian Slater, and he ties up Dennis Hopper effectively. He's got him in his trailer. Dennis Hopper realizes he's going to die.
Yeah.
And he realizes he's going to die incredibly painfully. And so he provokes Christopher Walken to kill him. This is a shocking and intense scene. 2 actors at the top of their game doing a brilliant scene, incredibly well written. And the characters are Dennis Hopper realizes he's going to die before you as the audience realizes and he comes to the solution, and you don't realize that it was his solution until after he's dead. And that's the most beautiful. I love characters that are smarter than you are while you're watching.
There's an amazing thing about watching smart characters. Vince Gilligan talked about this in The Talking Room. Making the characters smart is incredibly hard. And if once you realize, like when you learn the tricks of film and fiction in general, like the idea of Chekhov's gun, the idea that if there's a thing that appears in the first act, it's going to pop back up again in the third act, ruins reality TV.
Yes.
Because inevitably, they introduce an idea in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Two people are talking a lot. One of those people is going to go home. One of those people is going to win every single episode of every reality TV show ever.
Yes.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
If you can make a fictional film, novel, whatever, that is interesting, even when you know those constructs, that the characters are good and the characters are real and smart, it is a really difficult thing to do, and it is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to watch, and I love talking about it.
And Vince, I mean, every single character that appeared in Breaking Bad got a chance to be brilliant.
Yeah.
They really sought ways to bring their characters out. And every single character that Tarantino writes, villains, heroes, idiots even, has a chance to be smart and a chance to be smart in their world. And it's in a way, it has to do with, it goes right back to Chandler. I always bring everything back to Chandler. In his essay, The Simple Art of Murder, where he describes the character traits that make a good hero of a detective novel, he says he has a range of awareness that startles you, but it belongs to him by rights because it belongs to the world he lives in. So you're being educated by the character's intelligence, and his intelligence is educating you about the world that you're watching things happen in. Tarantino does that. Gilligan does it. Chandler did it.
And it makes things timeless. It's what makes Chandler timeless, because I don't understand what 40s, 50s LA is like.
Yeah.
But reading those books, I feel like I understand because he understands.
Totally.
And it all works out.
Totally. So watching movies repeatedly, my wife and I were just saying the other day, it is high time we watch Spirited Away again.
I haven't watched that in 10 years probably.
I need to go back and visit the bathhouse and see those characters. The Radish Spirit, Sen, Chihiro. I mean,
It's another engine to make sure you are.
Totally true.
We have one more really good question.
One more really good question. Let's bring it on.
Nathaniel wants to know, what's your advice for deciding when to buy an expensive tool like a lathe or mill versus when to just send it out to a vendor or somebody else who can make that for you?
That is a really good question. That's a terrific question. Look, some of it's based on how on my financial situation, whether I feel flush or not. There are periods of the year when, after we pay taxes or quarterly taxes or property
tuition
taxes or whatever,
yeah.
tuition, where it's not time to go out and buy a big expensive tool. And sure, I get paid well to do my job, but that's not going to last forever. So we do a lot of saving for the future. A
lot of it's got to be time too, right?
A lot of it is time, and a lot of it's what's worth my time. Right? Like I buy really, really good versions of tools for this shop. So they work every time I need them, and they work and they go fast so that I can make my time here efficient. When it comes time to buy an expensive tool, you should pay for a tool you really know how to use. Like if you don't know how to use a mill, there's no point for you to spend $10,000 on a full DRO motorized table setup mill, because it's going to be wasted on you.
But you get a bench mill instead and learn how to use it. Get a bench mill
and learn how to use it, and then learn what you need, because then, frankly, you'll save money doing that. My mill cost $1,000. That's a great price for what I got. I would have spent more had I bought it new, but I found it on Craigslist, and I could tell from the ad, from my knowledge as a machinist, that I was buying a really well-maintained tool by a guy who loved it. That type of experience saved my butt, because you could just as easily buy one that is totally worn out and not good for anything, and you've wasted $5,000.
Don't buy stuff from high schools.
No, and my lathe, I bought, went out specifically looking for the lathe that I know the best, and that's the one in Jamie's shop. That is what's called a 14 by 40 tool room lathe, and it is a very specific form factor. And it's probably the most common form factor for lathes in special effects machine shops because it gives you the widest range between tiny and reasonably large in a form factor that's safe and robust and allows you to work quickly. But I didn't know that when I first started using a lathe. I bought some not crappy, but an ancient Atlas lathe thinking, well, I've worked on this one, I can work on this one. I didn't know how to use the one I'd bought, and it took me forever to do it. So if you're going to spend a lot of money on a tool or like a rapid prototyping tool like a laser cutter, I really exhort you to learn and know what you need to know about that tool before you spend a lot of dough.
It applies to every single piece of equipment outside of the shop. Computers, cameras, bicycles, cars, everything.
Totally. Don't buy too much tool for you if you don't know what you're going to use it for.
And the other thing is now, especially if you live in one of the cities where there are co-working spaces,
where there's tech shops or hacker spaces, etc.,
then you can go learn.
You can go get that.
Join
experience.
them, learn there, take classes.
Indeed.
And then once you know what you need, you can spend the money.
And I will. I'll go the other way on small tools, like on a pair of nippers. Go spend $50 on a pair of Knipex nippers. They will last you for the rest of your life. When you want a riveter, spend $40 on the rivet tool instead of 10, and you will be a very, very happy person. The difference is marked, and I no longer will even accept a $10 rivet tool because they are just so crappy.
They don't work.
They don't work.
Yeah,
they
it's like a bad staple gun. They clog up all the time.
They're using more time than they're saving.
Yeah.
And so for those small hand tools, I used to have a rule at ILM, and I was scraping by back then, I had a new family. At ILM, if I needed a tool 3 times a year, I'd buy it, and I'd buy the best version that I could reasonably afford. And that metric meant that I spent probably about $2,000 a year on tools. Mm-hmm. That's a significant amount of money. However, that was more when you coupled it with all my other personal expenses. That was more than a standard deduction. So I deducted it right off the top because it's a business expense. And it is an incredibly worthwhile investment. I still have every tool I bought while I worked at ILM.
Well, and the other thing you had said in a different podcast is that when you did freelance work, a lot of times you would say, okay, I'm going to do this project, but in order to do this, I need to get this tool. So I'll build that into the quote. And then you walk away with some cash, maybe not as much as you would have made otherwise, but you also get a new tool that is an investment that'll keep paying off.
That's how I bought my sewing machine. That's how I bought my first welder. It's those jobs really funded those purchases.
And Craigslist and eBay I think Craigslist for a lot of tools because you can go look at stuff.
Craigslist is far better than eBay for finding deals because it's going to be local. Often people are going to be wanting to move stuff, and you've got to be prepared to move. The moment you find something that smells like a good deal, you better be ready to drive over to that person's house. I once lost an entire machine shop as a purchase because I waited 3 days. And in that period of time, someone walked past the open garage that I was going to purchase and paid half of what I was going to pay and drove away with it.
So you need a friend with a truck, too.
Yeah, you totally need a friend with a truck. Those are fantastic questions.
This crop of questions is the best we've ever had. So nice job, guys.
Excellent.
If your question didn't make the cut, I apologize. There were a ton, and it was tough to get through them.
Yeah.
But keep on sending them.
But keep sending.
Yeah, keep sending them.
It's been too long since we did the last one of these.
It has. So let's do this every month or so.
Yeah. So when we sometimes we sit down, and we're like, what are we going to talk about today? I don't know. We'll do questions instead.
Totally.
And that'll do it for us. If you want to know about premium memberships, where you can see more behind the scenes stuff that we do on Tested all the time. Yep. If you want to watch me take apart a MakerBot and put it back together, you can see that.
You have questions and suggestions for things to put on as premium content, things you want to see that we're not necessarily thinking about. Go ahead and tell us.
Comments, email.
We love them.
editors@tested.com. You can send Twitter messages to Norm at nchan.
Excellent.
And we'll be back next week with another edition of Still Entitled.
Bye, guys.
podcast@tested.com is the email for questions.
Excellent.
Subject line questions for Adam. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.